All right, everyone. So we're back, and we are now on Book of Matthew, chapter 17, and we're going to switch it up a little bit. Liliana has asked to read this one, so we're going to go ahead and let her um, read through it. Okay, so go ahead.
6 days later, Jesus took Peter and the two brothers, James and John, and led them up a mountain to be alone. As the men watched, Jesus' appearance was transformed so that his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as light. Suddenly, Moses and Elijah appeared and began talking with Jesus. Peter exclaimed, "Lord, it's wonderful for us to be here. If you want, I'll make 3 shelters as memorials. One for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah."
Good job. But even as he spoke, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my dearly loved Son, who brings me great joy. Listen to him." The disciples were terrified and fell face down on the ground. Then Jesus came over and touched them. "Get up," he said. "Don't be afraid." And when they looked up, Moses and Elijah were gone, and they saw only Jesus. As they went back down the mountain, Jesus commanded them, "Don't tell anyone what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." Then his disciples asked him, "Why do the teachers of religious law insist that Elijah must return before the Messiah comes?" Jesus replied, "Elijah is indeed coming first to get everything ready. But I tell you, Elijah has already come, but he wasn't recognized, and they chose to abuse him. And in the same way, they will also make the Son of Man suffer." Then the disciples realized he was talking about John the Baptist.
Wow. So Elijah had already come. Elijah was John the Baptist, and he was the one who had prepared the way. And John the Baptist did say that too. He said that he was basically preparing the way, and that he wouldn't even be. I think he said, wasn't it he that said he wouldn't even be worthy of carrying his sandals, right? Wasn't even worthy of carrying Jesus' sandals, and they mistreated John the Baptist, and then Jesus is saying that they're also going to mistreat him. They're going to mistreat Jesus, just like that. Okay.
But why are they gonna treat or abuse Jesus the same way?
You have to understand, because the Jews believed in a lot of things, that when Jesus came, it appeared to them. Okay, they didn't understand. Again, they were not paying attention, so they didn't understand that Jesus was fulfilling a lot of prophecies from the days of past, and because of that, they were not aware, or they were not paying. Like I said, they were not paying attention. So they treated Jesus badly because they thought that Jesus was doing blasphemy or speaking against God, or maybe some thought he was a false prophet or somebody who was making up his own thing. But he was trying to show them the entire time, hey, I am the one who has been promised to you. But do you think that he would have come and said, oh, look at me, I'm the one who... No, he had to show them in a way that still required them to show their faith, right? To show their faith in God, to show their faith in what was promised to them, because it was promised to them. Okay, in the Old Testament, and me and Mommy covered this in another video we did. We talk about how Jesus was promised to come in the line of the son of as the son of David, the King David, who the Jews are very familiar with. So that was a prophecy. That's the one who was going to carry on the lineage of David. Okay, is Jesus. So again, if they would have been paying attention, to who was fulfilling these prophecies, who his followers were saying he was. The things that he was doing and saying were consistent, were the same as the things that were being taught before, not different. They were just coming to a conclusion. He was completing the things that were left incomplete. Okay. Yeah.
At the foot of the mountain, a large crowd was waiting for them. A man came and knelt before Jesus and said, "Lord, have mercy on my son. He has seizures and suffers terribly. He often falls into the fire or into the water, so I brought him to your disciples, but they couldn't heal him." Jesus said, "You faithless and corrupt people, how long must I be with you? How long must I put up with you? Bring the boy here to me." Then Jesus rebuked the demon in the boy, and it left him. From that moment, the boy was well. Afterward, the disciples asked Jesus privately, "Why couldn't we cast out that demon?" "You don't have enough faith," Jesus told them. "I tell you the truth. If you had faith even as small as a mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it would move. Nothing would be impossible." Keep going?
Yeah.
After they gathered again in Galilee, Jesus told them, "The Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of his enemies. He will be killed, but on the third day he will be raised from the dead." And the disciples were filled with grief.
Grief is like sadness. Okay, grief. They were sad because they knew that Jesus was saying that someone was going to betray him, and then he was going to be killed, but that he would come back.
Well, at least he's coming back. Well, at least he's coming back.
There you go.
Okay. On their arrival in Capernaum, the collectors of the temple tax came to Peter and asked him, "Doesn't your teacher pay the temple tax?" "Yes, he does," Peter replied. Then he went into the house. But before he had a chance to speak, Jesus asked him, "What do you think, Peter? Do kings tax their own people, or the people they have conquered?" "They tax the people they have conquered," Peter replied. "Well then," Jesus said, "the citizens are free. However, we don't want to offend them, so go down to the lake and throw in a line. Open the mouth of the first fish you catch, and you will find a large silver coin. Take it and pay the tax for both of us."
So what do you got from that?
Okay, so let's see. He's reiterating what's going to happen and giving them the signs of what to look for. And that it needs to happen, and that he's going to rise from the dead, so that's going to be a very important moment that they need to remember. Then the part about the taxes.
So he's saying, so Peter is telling them, well, he's asking Peter because the collectors of the temple tax came asking Peter about the tax. Does your teacher pay the tax? And then Jesus used it as a teaching moment to show that just because, okay, so you follow Jesus, you following me, but you don't have to also offend the people. So if you don't have to offend the people, you make sure that you find a way to pay the tax for both of us, so not to offend the people. There's another verse in the Bible that says to give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God what is to God. So in this case, you're giving to Caesar what is to Caesar's. In other words,
That's also like be just in all your actions.
Yeah, to be just. If you live in a society that this is the law, and as long as it doesn't make you break your own law with God or break your own commandments from God, then you should do it. You should do it. You don't want to offend anyone, and you don't want to make our faith look like it's bad or it's disorganized or it doesn't follow rules that otherwise wouldn't harm the faith. So, what he's teaching is don't make it seem like we're just these crazy people who don't follow any kinds of rules. If there are rules that don't counter anything that God's law says, you can follow it for the sake of following the law that you live with in society. But if anything goes against, if any man law goes against God's law, that's where we would have to draw the line, because we have to follow what God says. Okay, but in this case, God is with Peter and he's telling him, the citizens are free, however, we don't want to offend them, so go and pay them the tax for both of us. Excuse me.
And the interesting thing is that
Excuse me.
this is a miracle in itself that he's asking them how to get this coin. They get it from a fish, guys. This is like, maybe that most people overlook that part, but because we know that Jesus has done so many miracles, but even that in itself was pretty big.
So when they say tax, they mean like the thing by bill, like
A tax?
yeah, like they mean
You pay money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A tax would be like if the government says, the government not being like the church, because you have the government and then there's a church. If the government that runs the country says that everybody has to pay this tax, then everybody has to pay the tax. Okay, so you don't get to not pay the tax just because you follow the church. Okay, now if for some reason the church said that you shouldn't because of this or that, then you'd have to think about, hey, is this something that's going against what God said, what God's law is? Because if it is, then we shouldn't do it. But here we see that Jesus said basically that it's fine. We don't want to offend them, so let's pay them the tax. And like Mommy said, oh, by the way, we're going to do this in the form of a miracle. Okay?
And one more question: what are temple
Temple tax?
yeah.
That's a great question. I honestly I'm not fully aware of that. I'm assuming that a temple tax would have been
So it's all
to support the temple.
Yeah. So
Is that what it is?
Yeah, to upkeep it, to take care of the church, so to speak.
Okay. There you go. So yeah, they were paying the temple tax to upkeep the temple. And Jesus saw it as a way to not be dishonorable or not to be offensive, so he decided to pay for it. Okay? All right.